I'd like to say some thanks first of all. Diolch i Merddon ap Dafydd a Gwasg Carreg Gwalch, who put their faith in us and published it. Brilliant. Also, Professor Joyce Ash, who did the introduction. She's based in the States, professor in the States, did a great introduction to the book. So, thanks to Wales Arts International as well. One connection between, I'll introduce the two poets, the other two Molas. Okay, Eric was the editor of Hiraeth Eroli Roli, which was an anthology of poems and stories from Wales and Cameroon. And the reason why we went there in the first place, Eric will explain a bit more about that. He's also the author of I, Eric and Garvey. You got some of those, will you?
No, I deliberately didn't bring it down.
Okay, which is the first part of his memoir. It's published by Parthia. The film, this is not a poem, directed by Greg Lewis, has been selected just recently as part of the Zebra Poetry Film Festival in Berlin. Ivor ap Glyn, been here before, is the Bardd Cenedlaethol Cymru. Interesting, I've tried doing this, if you travel along the A470 from Merthyr to Brecon, there are 4 poems. I've only found 3, but I know where the other one is now. There are 4 poems by Ivor and Owen Shears on rock at different locations. And they're quite easy, quite readily accessible. So well worth chasing up those. About the, reflecting on the landscape and the history. For the Cambria project it is. So Ivor's a broadcaster, twice winner of the Crown National Eisteddfod. I won the Learners Eisteddfod.
It's a combination of many years of work. So for those of you who are familiar with my story or who've read part of my autobiography, you understand the mysterious circumstances under which I found myself here in Wales. And those first months of living in Wales set the tone for where I am today. So for that, I'll be forever grateful. But this story was always one-sided. So I wanted the connections that I have made here in Wales to actually travel back to my country to see where I was from and how this story started. And I was very happy to travel to Cameroon with Mola Mike and Mola Ivor. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to where I was born in Buea in the southwest of Cameroon. Instead, I found myself as a stranger in French Cameroon. So while Ivor and Mike were learning about Cameroon, I was learning about becoming a Cameroonian in the place that I used to call home. And this collection of poems is what Mike and Mola Ivor have put together. But now they understand my story fully. And that when I'm in my house in Leckwith, I follow the rails of my dreams back to my landscape, which was once home, but now broken. So this story, Mola Ivor can tell it anytime. He knows my full autobiography now. And Mola Mike can tell it. So I am forever grateful. So for that, my story is kind of complete. And this poem is called My Favorite Food. Bring me kwakoko, bring me mbanga soup, bring me ekwang or achu soup. These are my favorite food. I promise, on the first night we shall dance. On the second night we shall fill our stomach with early morning palm wine. Again, we shall dance. You drink the rest, I'll drink the dregs. On the third night, as the sun drifts, as the moon shows its face, we shall hold hands. I will chant in Sufi mystics as slowly we disappear behind the hills of Trioki.
It's a privilege to be here this evening, as indeed it was a privilege to visit Cameroon at Eric's invitation and instigation. We were there 2 years ago, nearly just a little bit less than 2 years ago, around the time that there was much talk in the press about the 100th anniversary of the end of the First World War, which was in some ways quite appropriate because people often say that the shadow of the First World War, or shadow of all war, is a long shadow, but the shadow of that particular war is a long one in the Middle East and in all other countries, a number of other countries around the globe, but including Cameroon. Because prior to 1914, Cameroon was a German protectorate. It was one of the German colonies in Africa. And of course, Germany, having lost the war, they were stripped of their imperial possessions, and Cameroon was divided between France and between Britain. So the greater part of it, some maybe 3/4, 7/8 even, was given, awarded under the Versailles peace settlement to France, and the bit next door to Nigeria was awarded to Britain. So they had the British Protectorate of Cameroon and the French Protectorate. In the 60s, the two different protectorates became independent. Won their independence around about the same time, and in the British part of, or the English-speaking part of Cameroon, they were asked would they care to join with Nigeria next door, who of course shared a similar legal system, a similar English colonial system, similar English educational system. The people in the north of British Cameroon elected to join with Nigeria. In Eric's part, they decided no, they wanted to stay with Cameroon. Now, this meant there were two languages, two administrative languages then in Cameroon, French and English. Unfortunately, none of the native languages are sufficiently large on their own to be able to claim, say, well, right, most people here speak language X, let's make that the language of the new administration. Bakweri, Eric's language, is one of the bigger ones, but there are 250 languages all told in Cameroon, so we think we've got a problem here in Wales. It's not a problem at all. Anyway, so that was the situation then. The relation between the Anglophone Cameroon and Francophone Cameroon has not always been a happy one, and it's not a particularly happy one at the present time, nor was it 2 years ago, and hence the reason why we were unable to visit Eric's hometown, even his home area, which I know was something which was a great disappointment to him, not to be able to see some of his friends and neighbours, and not to be able to introduce us to where he was from. Rather, it's like, say you took a party of friends from, you've been living in America, and you were able to bring them back to London, and you said, right, well, unfortunately we can't go to Merthyr because there are problems there. But this is London. Well, you wouldn't really gain a full impression of Merthyr if you were having to gain it from London, would you? So this was our situation. We were in Yaoundé, the capital, the French-speaking capital city of Cameroon, but we didn't get any nearer. It was deemed not safe for us to visit the Anglophone area, because it was at the time, and still is, a war of secession, or at least unrest, armed unrest. People, when Eric's mother told us that she had to run into the trees behind the house when a gunman turned up in a lorry, because one of her daughters works for the police. It's this kind of tit for tat thing. Mike has some experience from Ulster, so it's that kind of that kind of division. As you've already gathered, Eric's mother is a formidable woman who will pack a case at the drop of a hat, but she's also a very generous woman, and indeed she gave us all these shirts. I mean, you might expect that she would want to give her son a shirt. In keeping with medieval tradition, where a gift could be requested with a coith, and it would also be thanked. Thanks would be given for the gift by a cywydd. Yeah. You're familiar with the cywydd as a measure, as a meter, each line has 7 syllables, and the rhymes are alternately accented and unaccented. So the first line, ffitiach ia effetti, yw canu'n gaeth i'ch chwaith chi. So there are 7 syllables, ffitiach ia effetti, yw canu'n gaeth i'ch chwaith chi. Ffitiach ia effetti yw canu'n gaeth i'ch chwaith chi. Nid gweu can lac fel macyn, ond cywydd tweed, cywydd tin. Gwnio o bell gan o barch, gwrthban cyfan i'ch cyfarch. A diolch na fy llafar yn rhwydd iawn am eich rhodd war, sef crys fel enfus o liw. Crys yw heiddi, crys heddiw, crys haclio, nid crys eglwys, crys da iawn mewn crisis dwys, crys bwamw, crys bohemaidd. Hwn yw'r prawf nad un o'r praidd, mor bardd o Gymro hebos, ni winga wrth ymddangos yn llon yn ei ogoniant a'i bling yn syndod i'w blant. Ni sbroliau yn Ysbrydain liau'n erioed fel un o'r rhain. Crys sofran yw'r crys hyfryd, y crys bach uwch crysau byd. Yn amlach teimlwn rhyw swyn yn dod o'r crys hwn, a dawn boia amdanaf, yn gefn ym mhob her a gaf. Yn y crys y mae croeso, lle llifa holl afiaeth smol sopo, a chymaint yw mraint o'i ddwyn nôl i mro, i gamrwnio'r hen Gymru heno. Ia effetti, it's fitting that in strict metre your praise we sing. We'll weave no loose hanky of verse, but a cywydd that's tight as tweed and terse. We'll sow a song of respect from afar, a whole blanket in your honour. In thanks my voice I'll lift to freely praise your worthy gift. A rainbow shirt, its colours arrayed, a shirt to be earned, a shirt for today. A haggling shirt, no church shirt, this, a good shirt in any crisis. A shirt that's bwamu and bohemian. A shirt that shows this poet is one who's not of the herd. There's no doubt that he'll not flinch when he hangs out, happy in his bling and glory, his children stunned by his new finery. Never in the island of Britain was a cloth like this ever woven. A fine shirt, its sovereignty unfurled, a shirt above all shirts of the world. More and more, I start to feel that this shirt has some kind of magic appeal. Boya's flair, wrapped around me so neat, backing me in every challenge I meet. In this shirt, there's a welcome. Small Sopo's zest flows in abandon. I'm blessed to have this shirt in the land of my birth. Let's Cameroonize Wales for all we're worth.
Not hunters, but seekers. We must not go there, travel east to the land of the great rhinoceros viper. For we are not hunters, but seekers. My people have warned me of the daily danger, urgent messages imploring me. For we are not hunters, but seekers. There's a place where it hides, waiting for prey in the water. It will leap out like a monster, for we are not hunters, but seekers. The hunter, with his knife, has all the skills, will be swallowed to the waist and then killed. But we are not hunters, we're seekers. My friend has much yearning for his home below the mountain, for the roly-roly to complete its meaning. Yet we're not hunters, but seekers. For all his songs and kin, he's still a child at the waterhole where the snake would eat him. Because we're hunters. Because we're not hunters, but seekers. So we cannot go there and must heed the warnings. Call of Hiraeth across the water. For we are not hunters,
3 Molas.
but seekers.
Growing up, we had uncles and aunties, and we cannot call people by their first names. Especially if you know this person is more clever, more intelligent than me. So Molas is a term of endearment. So instead of, I'll just say, I can't call Mike Mike. So Mike is Mola Mike. Yes. I can't call Ivor. This is Mola Ivor. You know, my little nieces and nephews now, they won't dare call me Eric. They'll call me Mola Eric. So Mola, you earn it. You know, you can't just be calling any random person Mola, you know. So if Ivor and Mike should go to Cameroon today, although I wouldn't advise it, they don't need me, because when they went there, they made a lot of friends. And I stood back because I didn't want to be telling them about the Cameroon that I was a stranger. So I had other people who were like their kind of guide. But you know, my autobiography, someone says it's about one man's struggle crossing continent to Europe. No, but for me, it was my desire to return back to my mother's kitchen. Everything that I write, the poems and everything, they are inspired by the 3 stones. You know, I have a picture of me when I was a little boy, and I'm glad the Red Cross never came across that picture, because I have wrinkled shin bones. But this happens in August. In August, we call it, what do we call it in August? Mbuanjoko. Yes. The rains are so heavy, it feels as if elephants are falling on one's roof. So children will sit by the fire. So by the time the rainy season is over, we have all wrinkles, shin bones, and you think we are like almost kicking the bucket. No, so I'm glad the Red Cross never came across that. But this poem is called Womba, and Womba translates to the smiles of a sleeping child, because this is how my mother remembered me. And it's on page 57. Womba, 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 the smiles of a sleeping child. That's how I remember you. In August, Mbuanjoko, when the rains came, we sit by the fire, counting 3 stones, eyes red, smoke. Womba, 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 the smiles of a sleeping child. That's how I remember you. When I was hungry and my mother's pots empty, she gave me palm oil and cocoyams. When my sister was hungry, my mother wasn't home, I gave Quinta palm oil and cocoyams. Then my brother came. We went to the farm. We looked for mbete, dry wood. We chased brown squirrels. Carry the wood on your head, says my brother. It will make your bones strong. That's why you have a big head, my sister says. Womba, 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 the smiles of a sleeping child. That's how I remember you. My brother hides under the mango tree. He smokes a cigarette. I pray my mother catches him. She did. We saw a black snake. It licked its lips. My brother ran fast. His feet did not touch the ground. We met by the stream where 3 roads meet. He held my hands. He told me a story of a woman. She lived on a tree. On that tree, there is a nest. In the nest, there is a feather. Woomba, woomba, woomba. The smiles of a sleeping child. That's how I remember you.
With Eric, we were going there to launch the book. And of course, if you're launching a book, you need to take supplies of books. Eric, as you can see, is a well-made, muscular man, and he had a sort of a large, quite large. It was a bit like a. Well, I could have probably taken a bath in it. He had 2 big suitcases, and he dropped one of them on the scale in Heathrow Airport.
Yeah.
The luggage allowance, I think, is 23 kilos. So this thing tipped the scales at 53 kilos. So we had to wait until the terminal luggage shop opened, buy another case, because as it happened, I only had 1 bag, so I could take another case. So we put half the books in there, and then we managed to get them anyway. So I digress. If you have a book already, if you look at page 80, if you haven't got a book already, that's what an Okada looks like. This is not a particularly characteristic Okada. An Okada, as you'll see, is a motorbike. It's the favoured way of making a taxi journey. The Okada driver is wearing a helmet. That's not very common. He doesn't, as far as I can see, he doesn't have a quidon, a toothpick in his mouth, because apparently you can't drive an Okada unless you've got a toothpick in your mouth, a quidon. And the other way in which it's not particularly characteristic, he only has 2 people on the back of his bike. 3, 4, somebody carrying a fridge. These were all things that we witnessed in Cameroon. I think the record was 5. A man, a woman, 2 children, the driver, and a little kid sitting between the front forks. Yeah, it was quite amazing.
We should have called Cardiff Council to do a health and safety assessment.
We should have done. The other thing you need to know is that bensikin is a pidgin word for Okada driver, because you have to bend your skin to sort of, if you're on the back of one of these things. Hogyn Okada. Hwn dynghedwyd I fyny'r llwybr tarw drwy'r traffig I drywanu ffordd rhwng lori a trwm a dim ond quidon yn ei geg. Het wlan am I ben byth helmed a golwg di wen ar ei web. Hwn dynghedwyd I fyw ar herw, I blygu groen drwy gornelu tin, I oddi weddyd yn ddi enw gan herio pob cyfraith ond eiddo'r hewl. Gallai faic, ddal dyn a'i gowlad o gasafa, neu deulu a bedwar os ydy'r pris yn iawn. Hwn dynghedwyd I beidio cysgu'r nos, dim ond stopio ar ochr lôn wedi boliad bili a hepian dan goedan. Gorwedda ar ei feic sy'n gilach na hamog, yn lle gwraig o'r genedl sydd ar y ddaear hon. Okada boy. His fate was to follow the bull path through traffic, lancing his way between heavy lorries with only a quidon between his teeth. Woolen hatted, never helmeted, his face armed with a smileless look. His fate was to live an outlaw, to bend skin through tight corners, to overtake namelessly, defying all dictates save those of the road. His Okada could carry a load of cassava or a family of 5 if the price was right. His fate was never to sleep nights, just roadside stops after a bellyful of billy, snoozing beneath the trees as he lay on his bike, narrower than a hammock, not a wife of the sort found on this earth.
It was interesting because there was a lot of, as we were sitting there, we were all sitting at the front, all the notorieties and VIPs, Mike Jenkins, poet laureate, which is another story. Eric decided I was poet laureate. Yeah, so we went to the British Embassy to try and get some money, wasn't it? Was that the reason? Anyway, we were there for ages. I read through every book in the waiting room, right? And then eventually we grabbed hold of this guy called Kieran, British Embassy Kieran. Anyway, Eric introduces us, the National Poet of Wales and the Poet Laureate. This guy looks to be Carol Ann Duffy's changed a bit, hasn't she? So anyway, Poet Laureate. We were on the radio. We were on the radio as well, and with this great guy. He was got a poem by Charles Tembe, who had a literature program in English on the radio, national radio. Blimmin' hell, you know. Made it like anyway. Introduces us live. No, not live, but national radio. Introduces us. Ivor, National Poet of Wales, Poet Laureate, and he said, "What do you have to do as the National Poet of Wales?" I was petrified. He's going to ask me, "What am I going to do with Poet Laureate?" Anyway, this is the launch, and as we were getting ready for the launch, thunder, lightning. I said to Eric, something's going to happen here. Complete, utter blackout. Total blackout. So luckily, torches and everything like this. But what was great was Eric's mother and practically his whole village were there. And we, as you'll see from the poem, we had dancing. But behind us was the photograph of the president, still president of Cameroon, Paul Biya, who he's like about, was he now 87, something like that?
They've removed all the buckets from the state.
Yeah, and he's been ruling about 55 years. When we were there was an election, and he won, of course. Anyway, out of the darkness. A resounding explosion, like the shock of news, travelling fast from troubled territories. Lights out, so we could no longer view that framed face as it peered on every street, promising the force of experience, the mistranslation revealing. With torchlight, as in a cave, the ceremony proceeded, poetry and speeches bringing light. All his village had journeyed for the homecoming. For them, a tunic of many colours, black hat and stick, applause for returning sun. From the depths, like beams through a cleft, came cha-cha drummers and dancers chanting, so Cymru Cameroon joined together, one expression. Rain ceased its troubled nattering, and the cockerel crowed both dawn and daytime, when we later shared palm wine under the gentle shade. Two friends, two lands, learning.
So this poem that I'm going to do is called Warning to a Stubborn Child, but it opens up with a song, because actually growing up I was one of the most stubborn children in the village. I was so stubborn that until 2018 no other child has been named Eric. This is a fact. If my mom calls me Eric when I walk into the house, I just literally close the door and I leg it and go and stay with my grandfather for 2 months, because I know I have done something wrong. Mama mawelo njia nenjia lene. Tata mawelo njia nenjia lene. Wamanuka to muli mekoli koli ribeyaru. Rina muko muli mekoli koli rina beyaru. Rina ene juju kena mebembe wane ya enere ya maungo. My mother warned me. My father, he warned me. They said, when you reach on top of the hill, do not sigh. Do not show any signs of tiredness. On top of the hill, I sighed. I took deep breath. I was tired. That was when I saw Jukuke and his friend Muvumba, who took me away. I was tired, weak. I was a boy, my bones soft. The judge banged his gavel. He shouted, Mankama, Mankama, exile, exile. Do you mean exile, as in the case of the Molikilikili, the stick insect, who died and resurrected herself from death to question the grave diggers, the mourners, why she wasn't washed? Why she was buried in dirty clothes? Or do you mean exile, as in the case of Mulberry? Or do you mean exile, as in beyond the village gates, to cross seas, to climb mountains, seeking peace and finding none? In my flight, I saw my grandmother. She was rearranging the flowers around my grave. She wrote the words on my epitaph. Ngale was here. Ngale is no more. In my flight, I saw young boys. I saw young girls dancing barefoot in the rains of my dreams and my broken landscape. I saw bees. I saw bees pregnant with nectar, carrying me home, away from exile. Thank you very much.
Yeah, this relates to that particular incident then. Stopped by the military for Mola Evo. Early evening in the military zone, and too much matango meant I was a bursting balloon. Stopped by the military men, pointing guns and demanding identification. The man from the mountains in the back of our car with a name to instantly condemn. Felt like a flashback of 70s Belfast. Panic, sharp as my bladder, stabbing. No passport. Left in the hotel. Something with your photo on. I fumbled for my Merthyr bus pass. Cerdyn Teithio Ratach. My dark photo could have been anyone, yet the soldier wrote down details, satisfied. While the man from the mountains had no ID whatsoever. And for a moment, we were all on the verge of incontinence, till a wodge of dirty Franks saw us onwards.
So this guy had one of those typical Southern Cameroonian names, but he didn't have no photo ID with him.
Nothing at all.
You know, and you've been living under this kind of regime for all your life.
Yeah.
So if it wasn't for the fact that our driver...
So he was from the Civil War area, basically. The Anglophone area.
Yeah.
You know, so he...
Yeah.
Dangerous.
These guys, these military officers have Kalashnikovs, not the kind of guns that we see in Cardiff's train station today, but like they can shoot you.
Yeah.
And this dude is with us in the car
Yeah.
without an IT card. But our driver Benji, who understands how the Cameroonian democracy works, kind of spoke to the officers on the side, and money exchanged hands, and that's how we were free. And so for me, everything is lost. Cameroon is in a state of hopelessness now because we don't know what we are fighting for. We are killing each other. So this poem is entitled "Lost." My country gives out a strange smell. Her beautiful voice is lost. Her songs a cacophony of despair. Don't be fooled by the chorus. Booyah is nigh. Booyah is nigh. Who will write down the memory of the soldier whose head you dangle on a stick? And she laments loud, her daughter caught in the firing line. Stray bullets, says the news. The army, the bush dogs, dressed as high priests and high priestesses. Do not go beyond the city gates. Do not speak ill of the chief. Do not speak of the dead or how they came to be. Importantly, do not scratch your buttocks in public. The law of my land shall hasten your visit to the guillotine. Thank you.
It was a Simbok, a central part of the city, and yet in that part of the city, the roads were dirt roads. You know, most of the roads around the city were tarmac, but occasionally there were, sections that were just clay, and this was one of them. Charles Tembe was in the process of building a house within his own. The ground floor was complete. The first floor had no roof. There were no windows. There were walls, no roof, no windows. So it was a project in progress, but because of the uncertainty of life in Cameroon, and another aspect of that uncertainty was the fact that his mother and his mother-in-law, who if I remember correctly, didn't get on terribly well with each other. But he was from Bamenda and his wife was from Anglophone Cameroon. So for their own safety, they had to join their son and their daughter in Yaoundé, Francophone, a long way away from home. It's like, you can't stay in Merthyr, you've got to go and live in London because it's not safe for you in Merthyr. And imagine how the wrench that would place upon you. But the welcome could not be faulted. Miriam Coti. Mae'r lleuad yn gwenu ar dŷ Charles Tembe, ac yn nos Yaoundé mae'n haws dychmygu palas cyflawn I weledigaeth, pan na fydd y ffenestri'n rhwth, ond fel spectols hael yn pefrio ar hyd y llaw ucha, a dyfodol sicrach yn do ar y cyfan. Tŷ ar ei hanner yw hwn, ar hyn o bryd, yng nghanol y ddinas lonydd pridd, ond sdim yn anghyflawn am groeso Tembe, a Flanten, a Physgod yn llenwi ein bwrdd. Mae'n byw o fewn muria I freuddwyd yn Simbog. Mae ocra yn tyfu ei gefn yn erbyn wal tua'r haul. Ac felly, I ddyheuad ynta, ymhell o'i hen gynefin, a'i ddirian cynnig llochas a gobaith i'w fam a'i fam yn hyfraith, rhag helynt hogiau'r amba, rhag mwrdwr yn Bamenda. Raising walls. The moon smiles on the home of Charles Tembe, and it's easier in the darkness of Yaoundé to imagine the palace he plans. Its upper windows no longer gaping, but sparkling like sunglasses, topped off by a brighter future. His house is a work in progress in this inner city of earthen roads, but Tembe's welcome lacks for nothing, with fish and plantain filling our table. He lives within the ramparts of his dream in Simbok. His okra grows towards the sun, with its back against the wall. And his aspiration is just the same, far from his former home. His walls offer refuge, hope, and more to his mother and to his mother-in-law from the threat of murder in Bamenda. from amber boys who won't surrender.
The displaced. Always strangers in the city, always thinking about the country, always living with their grief, never forgetting their tribe and gods, never neglecting to pray to one God, never forgetting soldiers, bandits, guerrillas, feeling like servants, yet so grateful, feeling alone, yet part of a family, feeling torn apart, like their country. Geckos, they chase across flat spaces. Black kites, they circle in the sky. Antelopes, they leap fallen trunks. Passing guns, their memories explode. Passing razor wire, hands bleed. Passing uniforms, their eyes hide. Refugees at last come to rest. Prisoners of burning nightmares. Climbers to the tree's highest fruit.